webinar is around data. So we will be discussing meaningfulness of data, regional data sets, metadata and indicators as results coming from different projects. And we want to discuss the main methods and the best practices that are available to have effective capitalization on these efforts in order to feed different regional mechanisms in the Mediterranean and management tools. And here I need to refer to some very relevant platforms, I would say, that are available, that could be, that our results feed on, such as the MapAMed platform or the Biodiversity Protection Platform of the Mediterranean, as well as different policy efforts such as the Marine Strategy Framework Directive of the EU or the Integrated Coastal Zone Management, as well as evidence to be provided to national processes to feed their reporting systems. So we will hear from 4 ongoing initiatives. The first presentation will be around tools under development by the Panacea project that my colleague Emanuele Mancosu from ETC UMA will be providing. A second presentation will be provided by our colleagues from the AMARE project on tools that support different management efforts in terms of protection in the Mediterranean region. That will be presented by our colleague Federica Feini. A third presentation will be provided by EMODnet Med Checkpoint that focuses on the integration of a wide variety of environmental data, marine data mainly, on their collection, their design, their harmonization, in order to support regional activities. This will be provided by our colleague Simona Simoncelli. And a fourth presentation from the SIMWESTMED project that focuses on data gap filling for informed marine strategy maritime spatial planning directive at transboundary level, and it will be provided by our colleague Dominique Carval. I also inform you that the webinar is expected to be interactive, so we are using a few short presentations. So I would like to ask the speakers please not to take more than 8 minutes in terms of your presentation, because we would like also to open some questions. So we will have a poll system between the presentations for you to provide some feedback to. So you will have a screen with questions that you could answer between the presentations. And after the presentations, we will have a space for questions and answers for you to take the floor and ask questions or share comments you might have. So, in order to keep the discussions clear, I would like please to ask all the speakers, when you don't have the floor, to mute your microphones, so we make sure that there's clarity in the sound. And for the participants, you would see in the interface that you see of the Adobe program that you would have a hand raised. You can raise this hand in case you want to take the floor after the finish of all the presentations. Okay, now while preparing for the first presentation by my colleague Emanuele, we would have a first poll, which will be 5 questions. You will see them now on the screen. And we would ask you please to fill them quickly. It will not take more than 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. And then we will start with the first presentation of Panacea project. Thank you. I also remind you that this webinar will be registered, so it will be provided under a video later on that we would facilitate for you. So in case you missed anything, don't worry. Later on, we will get back to you with a copy of this session. Thank you. so. I hope everyone had the time to put their answers. I see still some people working, so we might give it 30 more seconds and then we start with the first presentation of Panacea. Manuele, can I ask you please to start your presentation?
Yes. Hello everybody. Can you hear me? I think so. So my name is Emanuele Mancosu. I'm from the University of Malaga, European Topic Center, and we're going to present the MED Biodiversity Protection Knowledge Platform that is generated or aimed from Panacea. Panacea is an Interreg Med project of priority access free and has as main objective to synthesize outcoming of natural protection and biodiversity conservation efforts, engaging stakeholder community and transferring knowledge beyond the project's lifetime, implementing a communication and dissemination strategy, developing a long-term capitalization tool, ensuring evidence-based policy enforcement. The timeline of the project is 4 years, starting in 2016 and will over in 2019. We have a different partner in addition to us from Mediterranean country as France, Italy, and Montenegro, and Spain too. Our main objective, the platform is recognized as capitalization tool to synthesize and disseminate the scientific knowledge and best practices of our community. There's a focus in biodiversity, and so far we have identified different topics as climate change, marine litter, management of Poseidonia and beach dunes, new technology for water monitoring, governance model for fishery and wetland, so different type of topic inside our community. Our platform should be structured in a way that should understand a different type of data to drive different activities and serve a different type of user. So a general overview of the system of the Panacea platform. Our topics we have identified, and in addition, there is something wrong here, sorry. Well, I can get back on this. What we have here is this platform should be organized in 3 steps. So collect the information from our community, organize them, and be ready to be shared over the community and outside the community. On this basis, we build up a better and compromised structure, where is the identify as input not only the modular project output, but also other external data set that could be from big providers, FAO, or other axis of the Interreg Med program as sustainable tourism. And what is important in this is that the data should be harmonized and catalogized following standards and protocols that are existing already, in order to have something that will be better there will be an easier way to use this data, and also this data could be reflected in other platforms. So what we have done to start our implementation phase is to study what are the needs of our modular partners, and also looking in other sustainable axes of the project. Because as you could imagine, this Interreg Med program has a different project it's under is. Our implementation will be focused on different functionality that has been identified under a conceptual model and will be translated in more practical tools or module that will serve this kind of functionality. So far we identified a search engine, map viewer, and a metadata catalog. So how these tools or modules should be translated into software, we need to respect different questions. How good and how this software solution could be provided by such functionality. What are the highest degree and quality of integration achieved among the selected software solutions to provide a current user experience? How complex are the configuration, integration, and customization to match budget available and project deadlines? So all these questions need to be asked to decide which software use instead of another. So far we have a different physical implementation model, and we focus in some commonalities just to start and serve what is our needs. So far there are different data viewer examples that I can show here, and more or less they are providing the same picture with a map and a description of the data that are included in the viewer. So some of them have also the capacity to interact and digitalize online on the fly the data that we have. Another important point of view is the metadata concept. Metadata is composed by three elements, we can say. So there is the schema and the keywords that are characterizing the structure of this metadata. So all the information that are included in the metadata should support in describing as much as possible the data to make it easier to find a data that is reflecting this information. So far in our platform we consider different standards and different schemas, and we had to find a compromise to accept all the needs. The optimal visualization should have the metadata information, as we said, and the possibility to have an overview of the different data, both with tabular or graphs or spatial data. Not last but not least is the license information that should be always remarked, because this is ensuring the authorship of the data. An example of a catalog we could have from the MediaMare catalog, where it's possible to have a free text search and have characterize the data under different keywords to simplify the search, the discovery of the data that we want to have. And then, of course, have a preview of the data. What will be done with the platform also, it's the possibility to have a overview of existing data and together with the community see if there is a chance to improve them. So here we can see an old data about distribution of marine Poseidonia, and on the left side, on the right side, we have a list of countries that under the project are developing testing. So new maps could be added and compare with the old one. Other example about wetlands, what was done in the past, we can see in the map about, I have another reference, but what is done now that the community, we have an up-to-date version, an up-to-date description of the efforts that are happening in a wetland system. Another example is about a product that was generated in the MediaMare project, a composite pressure indicator based on different data sets that are key elements of biodiversity in Mediterranean, and this is just a way how they were combined. So here we can have a look on pilot sites that we are having in the Panacea community, for example, Balearic Island, and the possibility to overlap this kind of data and have a quick overview on how are affecting. In this case, it's Bonifacio. What's more, we have also the possibility here to have a structure by IUCN category of our pilot sites that here are distributed. This is an example that will be included and served by the platform to understand how this community is operating and working. Last slide is about our data policy. So what we create is a document that is guaranteeing or try to set license and copyright to the data to be sure that every data that is get from the platform will be really cited in a good way. So all the data could be reused under safe solution. What our next aim of our platform is to publish geographic distribution of MED pilot areas in beta version of MED platform, assess and visualization of selected MED project information as examples, integration with specific products generated from previous initiatives, provision of GIS support to biodiversity community outputs, harmonization of MED project data. So this is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emanuele. Very clear presentation, I think. We took a bit more time. I didn't want to interfere. I hope for the next presenters to really stick to the 8 minutes, please. So going from what is under development within this initiative in Panacea, we move to know more about another project that is under the Interreg Med community, about Amare project. So we have our colleague Federica. I give you the floor. So to tell us a bit what you have been doing under this project, but I know that it's coming from previous efforts as well, such as the COCONET best practices that you have developed. So we're all ears.
Okay. Hello, everybody. In the meantime, that the slides are going to appear, I present myself. I'm Federica Foglini. I work for the National Research Council of Italy, the Institute of Marine Science. And today I'm going to present our experience in this European project, COCONET, that involves 39 partners. And I was in charge of managing the data coming from many different partners, and it was a really multidisciplinary project, including geologists, biologists, oceanographers, and so on. I'm sorry, but I can't see the presentation on this slide. Are there any problem, Emmanuel?
I can see the presentation. You see it?
Okay. You can see, but I can't. Maybe there is a problem in my... Yeah. So I can share my screen, maybe, or
yeah.
Because
Yeah, if you prefer.
Sorry, but I can't see. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I can't see it. Stopped. Yeah.
So maybe Federica can share directly her screen.
Or I can maybe close and reopen the Adobe Connect. Maybe there is some problem in the Adobe Connect. So if you want to skip to the next presentation.
Okay. Yes, we can do so. In all cases, we have a poll as well. A few questions that we had in mind also putting. So please, if you could, we can go to the poll too. So we give the audience 2 minutes to fill their understanding on the answers. And
okay, so I will restart the Adobe Connect. Okay, okay, you're welcome.
Thomas? Ah, sorry. Adesso li faccio uno scherzo. Che passa dal mare.
Okay, so I think that we gave some time for everyone to tell us their understanding on the questions. Can we move on with the second presentation of Federica?
Yes, I'm ready. We can try to see the screen. Okay.
I hope you see it now.
Okay, now I can see the screen.
Happy. So the floor is yours, Federica.
Okay. And okay, so Emanuele, are you changing my slide?
You can do by your own on the bottom left. There are some arrows you can see.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so I already introduced myself. So what I'm going to show today is an example of this experience coming from the COCONET project in building a geoportal for marine protected area management. So first of all, we started creating a data management workflow coming from trying to organize data coming from many different data sources. What does it mean? that we have data coming from the real world that are really different from each other. As you can see here in the marine environment, you have data coming from many different instruments. Here you have an example of bathymetric data, samples coming from the seafloor, backscatter data, videos, images, graphics, and also many data that are not spatially referenced. So we had really lots of different kinds of data to manage. And what we did, first of all, was to create a conceptual model, trying to design the architecture of the geodatabase, able to homogenize all the data. The conceptual model, of course, didn't start from scratch, but we used the conceptual model coming from the INSPIRE directive in order to be as standard as possible. The usage of standards is very important when we work with different partners in the European community, because it's very important to speak all the same language. And this data model try to let the workflow as very efficient and try to make the data set as homogeneous as possible. The third step was to create a real logical data model. So this step is when we really create the architecture of the geodatabase. It seems very complex, and it is, but at the end, the geodatabase becomes effective and usable for many different users in the same way. Because the idea was to try to give to our partners the possibility of using a huge amount of data, all homogeneous data, to really produce the final results. The last step is to implement the geodatabase, so translating the logical data model in a physical model, and we populated 11 geodatabases. As you can see here, the geodatabases has been integrated with many different layers. So the power of a GIS is the possibility of integrating many different information. As you can see here, we have information about sea regions, socioeconomic threats, geology, maritime units, habitats and biotopes, oceanography, biodiversity, protected sites, and elevation. The last step was to connect all these 11 geodatabases to a spatial database in Oracle, and then give the possibility of visualizing but also working with the data through a web GIS, so through a platform that was open to all partners, but that is actually open to public. It is possible to access this platform, just to have an idea of what we have done, through a web page. And we have two different platforms, one that was organized at Mediterranean scales and Black Sea scales, because we had also the Black Seas, and we have so a very big scales organization of data. And then we have a platform with high resolution data in two pilot sites that are the South Adriatic and the western part of the Black Sea. So what is the COCONET Web GIS? The COCONET is an example of a platform where you can visualize all your databases here as layers. You can see, for example, the content of your layers and the legend here. So here you have, for example, the distribution of habitat, both punctual habitat or aerial habitat in the entire Mediterranean Sea. We made a lot of effort in really collecting and homogenizing all this data. Then you can make a query of your database. So the database is so huge that you need to query to look for something that is very useful for you. For example, here you can ask the content of a polygon, because of course here it is not just a spatial database, but there are many information attached to this polygon. For example, this area is, you have all the information about the habitats that characterize this area. You can even do more complicated queries to your databases using these queries functions. Here, for example, I show you that we are looking for a specific MPAs. You can select the MPAs by country, but you can even choose to select by legal foundation or by management plan. So you have many possibilities of filtering your database. And you can, when you have your selection done, you can straight away go to the features in the image, in the map. So you can really browse into a huge database and found what you are looking for. Of course, you can even use the WebGIS for producing maps. You can print maps and create a georeferenced image to be used in your own desktop, or you can create a PDF with a legend. Here is an example of PDF with a legend and a scale bar that you can use, for example, for reports. And there is also the possibility with credentials, in this case, of downloading data straight away from the platform. So here you can define your geographical location and download your data as shapefile. You can select the group layers. Of course, to give the possibility of downloading data, we need to define a data policy. So we defined an agreed data policy between partners. And for downloading data, the partners, but all people now that can access the platform, can ask for credentials to the data managers in order to be able to download the data. The last important steps I want to remind, because Emmanuel already talked about that, is the importance of metadata when you have such a huge amount of information. For COCONET, we implemented metadata using CDataNet format, and we implemented the CDataNet format, and we also created a metadata catalog for browsing the data ourselves in a GeoNetwork system. So it's very important to choose the right standard for the metadata, because it's just with the metadata that we are able to look for the data from different portals. And I think that also later the EMODnet presentation will focus on the importance of metadata. And thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'm here. Or you can even write me an email. I leave the floor to the next speaker.
Yes, thank you so much, Federica. Okay. Quite a complete overview of all the potentials that your platform has developed. So we move on now with the EMODnet presentation. So I please ask Simona to take the floor and to present the data ingestion project under EMODnet that they have worked on.
Hello to everybody. I hope to, okay, I have to go back to, okay. Can you see the first page of the presentation? So I will present the EMODnet Data Ingestion initiative, and in order to wake up your data and set them free for blue society. So what is EMODnet? EMODnet is the European Marine Observation and Data Network, which consists of more than 160 organizations that together work on assembling, harmonizing, and making marine data products and metadata on European coastal and ocean waters more available to public and private users. So on one side, we provide a central access to the data so that they can be easily accessible, free of restriction on use, and interoperable. So these data are collected, stored, and managed by the member states or regional aggregators or national data centers, for example. On the other side, we create data products of common interest. So developed, stored, and made available, these products are developed, stored, and made available by EMODnet. So here you can see, okay, sorry. Here you can see a schematic of how EMODnet works. So we have one central portal that you can access at www.emodnet.eu, and from the central portal you can access to the thematic portals, which are 7 thematic portals that goes from geology, seabed habitats, biology, chemistry, bathymetry, physics, and human activities. Then we have also 6 sea basin checkpoints, 1 per each regional basin, European basin, so for the Arctic, Baltic, Med Sea, the Atlantic, the Black Sea, and the North Sea. And these checkpoints are they have the goal to check the fitness for purpose of marine data in the European seas. So what is the timeline of EMODnet? We are now at the first phase, where we aim at gain a multi-resolution. And this third phase is involving a lot of institutes, more than 160, as I told you before. And what I'm focusing today is the data ingestion portal that you see on the top right in red. So the data ingestion portal so why EMODnet? What is the motivation behind EMODnet? So every year, the European Union and the member states invest 1.4 billion of euro in marine observation and data collection. So most of these data end up in different databases and systems scattered around Europe in different, and these data are difficult to find, to access, assemble, and use. So EMODnet aims to provide an infrastructure in order to serve the user community, which are mainly from the public sector, the civil society, the private sector, and also mainly the research community. Well, which are the benefits that we see in EMODnet? So we want to increase the productivity because we want to avoid cost of repeated collection of data by improving access to already existing data in compatible formats. We want to stimulate innovation because anyone can build added value services using the data from many sources. We want to reduce the uncertainty because accessing in a most efficiently manner to data improves the forecast of the behavior of the sea, reducing costs and protecting life and property in coastal areas and offshore. And we want to add value to your own data because sharing the data within EMODnet allows your own data to be combined with the data from others to generate better added value products and information to support the global open data movement. So here I schematized the 7 thematic lots, and in the red squared I enclosed the ones that probably will interest more this community, which are the seabed habitats, the chemistry lot, and the biology. So in the seabed habitats, you can find data on model seabed habitats that are so they use other data within other thematic lots, like the depth, for example, the seabed substrate, the biological scale, the broad scale biological zone, temperature and salinity, life, oxygen. So all these data are used by the models to forecast the seabed habitats. So you can find also broad-scale physical habitat map, detailed habitat maps from surveys, individual habitat modeling output, and habitat point data. While for the chemistry, you can find pesticides and biocides, antifoulant, pharmaceuticals, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, radionuclide fertilizers, acidity data, dissolved gases, plastics. Now we have in the third phase also marine litter, and chlorophyll, silicates, and organic matter. Regarding the biology, this is more important maybe for the biodiversity, so you can find biomass abundance and gridded abundant maps on different species groups like phytoplankton, zooplankton, angiosperms, macroalgae, invertebrate bottom fauna, birds, mammals, reptiles, and fish. So what is the data ingestion portal? Is part, you can access it from the main portal. And the aim of this portal is to facilitate additional data managers to ingest their marine data sets for further processing, publishing as open data, and contributing to application for society. We want to identify and reach out to organizations from public research and private sectors who are the managing marine data sets who are not yet connected and contributed to the existing marine data management infrastructure. We want to motivate and support those potential data providers to release their data sets for safekeeping and subsequent free distribution through EMODnet, to facilitate the inclusion of those marine datasets by means of data ingestion services and subsequent communication with expert data repositories to work up the metadata documentation for direct publishing, and in the second stage, for making the submitted dataset fit for inclusion in the EMODnet data services and products. So why do we want to do that? Data and data products are very important for research, monitoring, predicting, and managing the marine environment, assessing fish stocks, biodiversity, offshore industry, maritime industry, offshore controlling any hazards or disaster, and risk industries. Data also support the execution of international protocols, conventions, and agreements signed by the member states for protection of the sea. But still many data collected by public authorities, research and private operators do not arrive to the national or regional repositories and are unavailable to scientists and engineers for further purposes, and additional data providers can therefore contribute to the increasing productivity of those working on marine issues, stimulating innovation in the blue economy, and reducing uncertainties to our knowledge of the behavior of the sea. So this is also, there is also an advantage for data providers that will be publicly acknowledged by their contributions through the EMODnet data ingestion portals by means of metadata and data citation. So for who? EMODnet ingestion is targeting potential data providers from the industry sectors, from the Navy sector, from the academia institution, from the governments. So this includes also different levels of governmental organization, such as the intergovernmental organization, national or regional government bodies, and public authorities. How does it work? So data are gathered from observing organizations. They are validated, processed, and stored in dedicated national centers. They are populated in the appropriate European infrastructure, such as CDataNet, Eurovis, or other depending on the theme. And at the end, they will made part of EMODnet data portal. So you can see the diagram. So you can submit your data through the portal, and you need to have and get a marine ID to register. So you will register, you get your marine identification, and then there from the portal you can access to the manual for data submitters and manual for data centers. So you can get all your information. So here is how it looks, the data portal. So on one side you have your data submission part where you can, you are followed step by step by a person and by a data center in order to populate your information with all the metadata that are needed. And then you can also look at all the guidelines for this for your submission. On the other side, on the right side, you can also see which are the other data submissions. So you can see online, on time, in real time, what are the other data providers.
Wake up your data.
Set them free at EMODnetingestion.eu.
Here at EMODnet, we share lots of data, 24/7 hard-working data. But there's some loose ends to be tied up in order to keep these networks strong and durable. We know there's still sleeping data out there. Good morning, government. Ahoy, Navy and offshore industry. Hello, NGOs. What's up, scientists and academics? There's a need.
So, yeah, the video is cutting. So the data is cut, the video is cutting.
For your old and recent data, to strengthen...
We will keep this video and we will show it we will send it with later on to everyone to see. And
Europe's marine open data
with the last presentation, so we don't lose time and have some comments on board afterwards. I'm sorry for that, Simona. Very interesting. And I'm sure the video, I've seen it before, and it's really very interesting. So we will make sure everybody receives a copy of it when we send the brief report afterwards. So yes, thank you again. Let us move to the fourth presentation given by Dominique. So Dominique, can you make sure we hear you? Hello?
Hello?
Dominique?
Fine, yes. Can you hear me? Is it okay?
So, do you hear us?
I hear you. You hear me? Hello?
Hello, yes, I do hear you now. Okay, the floor is yours, Dominique. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I present myself. I'm Dominique Carval from the CHOM, which is the French Hydrographic Service. I thank you a lot for this invitation to present SIMWESTMED project activity on data needs and gaps for MSP in a transboundary context. SIMWESTMED project, SIMWESTMED project is related to the MSP Directive, which is a directive from the 33rd of July 2014, and establishes a framework for maritime spatial planning. And this is a tool for the EU Maritime Integrated Policy. Indeed, the competition for maritime space for renewable energy, equipment, aquaculture and other uses has highlighted the need to manage our waters more coherently. Maritime spatial planning works across borders and sectors to ensure human activities at sea take place in an efficient, safe and sustainable way. So the MSP Directive is
Sorry, Dominique.
Sorry?
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just speak a little bit louder so everybody hears better?
Okay. Okay. I'll try. So the MSP Directive is implemented based on the objective to develop the blue economy while protecting the marine environment, to avoid and reduce conflicts between maritime sectors and to develop synergies, and also to increase cross-border cooperation between member states. Oh, what happened? I can't see my presentation anymore.
Oh. Yes, now you see it?
It's okay, thank you. So, the MSP Directive implementation consists for the EU member states to establish marine plans due in 2021, starting from the marine knowledge based on the best data available and processed or analyzed in order to integrate a multiplicity of objectives, approaches and methodologies such as ecosystem-based approach, good ecological status. Oh, I consider there is something wrong with the presentation, sorry. Good ecological status, land-sea interactions, blue growth, future trends, pressures and impact. So, SIMWESTMED is a project under the supervision of the European Maritime General Direction, co-funded by European Maritime Fishery Fund. It's a 2-year project which started on the 1st of January 2017. It involves 11 public bodies from Spain, France, Italy and Malta, and also from 2 international organizations, Environmental Programme for the United Nations and the CPMR. 9 of these organizations are already involved in their national MSP implementation process. Please note that the area of the project of SIMWESTMED represented on the slide is indicative only and is without prejudice to maritime claims of sovereignty or jurisdictions of the country. SIMWESTMED objectives are to support implementation of the EU MSP Directive in the EU member states' waters, to contribute to develop the cooperation between member states, in order to take into account the transboundary issues at the borders and to avoid conflicts or imbalances at the borders, and to identify shared issues and develop neighboring countries' joint planning projects. So the activity about data in SIMWESTMED project is leading by SHOM and beneficiate of the cooperation of the partners of the project brought together in a task group. In other words, it is about studying how to support, the objective is to study how to support the access to data and the use of this data related to the 4 countries, Spain, France, Italy and Malta, for transboundary MSP. That is to say that what we want to do in SIMWESTMED data activity is to study how to support sharing transboundary MSP knowledge using a geoportal that harvests the data of the producers of reference. So the study is divided in 2 steps. There is really something wrong with this presentation. 2 steps are not on the screen. The first step is the data inventory and analysis. And the second one is the geoportal demonstrator implementation and the initial activity to address some technical gaps.
Sorry, Dominique.
Sorry?
There are already people asking again if you could please raise a bit your voice.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm going to speak louder. So, to support the MSP transboundary knowledge, in order for them to be published, harvested and shared on the portal, for the identification of transboundary issues and potential synergy opportunities cooperation between member states. The data requirements are that they cover either Spain, France, Italy and Malta waters and their littoral, or even the whole area, that they are relevant for MSP in a transboundary context. And what does it mean? It means that the data should inform firstly of the national limits as a framework for the transboundary issues. It concerns data describing terrestrial boundaries, plain maritime delimitations and maritime boundaries. The data should secondly inform of the coastal states' national MSP processes. Data concerned are the MSP national plans, but actually no plans exist yet in Spain, France and Italy. Only Malta has the national plan, which is in a revision process. Other data in this category are the areas of competencies of the MSP authorities and the different areas where the MSP is applied when several scales are chosen. The third group of data should inform on the evidences which have been used to elaborate the national plans. Because the countries are actually elaborating their plans, they do not have yet identified all the relevant official data except good environmental status indicators coming from the MSFD implementation. So this group of data should cover the data about physical environment, facts and forecast models, biological environment, including indicators of good environmental status, maritime policies and regulations, uses and activities, pressures and impacts between environment and uses and between uses and uses, socio-economic data also. All these data should be available in web services format. I'm really sorry about this, the difficulty with the presentation. There is really something wrong with the schema. The data should be in web services in order to guarantee that the information based on updated data, and in order not to duplicate the maintenance work done by the producer of the data. These data should be associated with metadata information in SPI compliance in order to guarantee meaningful and valuable information. The data inventory there are many options to categorize the MSP relevant data. We have just described one, objective-oriented, and in the study, to gather the data, to harvest the data, to analyze it, and later to publish it on a geoportal demonstrator, the detailed classification of the recent MSP data study is used as a guidance. The data inventory and analysis is still ongoing. Here are some figures of last October. They indicate that a number of portals and producers of relevant data are identified, whereas there are not yet official MSP data portals, except in Malta, where we can find the Malta Spatial Data Infrastructure. France is actually preparing such a portal, and the SIMWESTMED outputs of the activity on data could be useful for the design of such portals. Meaningful, harmonized information can also be found thanks to European or Mediterranean sources like EMODnet, FAO, SIMWESTMED, MediaMer, and much more. At this stage of the work, conclusions about the data assets for meaningful and comparable information related to MSP in a transboundary context is that it exists data shared at the European scale, at the Western Mediterranean scale, or at national scale. It is also possible to find a lot of accurate information available locally and useful for some specific analyses for the MSP. At this stage, barriers to a meaningful transboundary information are that among countries and among categories of data, we meet an imbalanced data sharing. For example, in France, the access to fishing data is difficult, or also in Italy and Spain, the access to completed information on maritime delimitation is not possible. We meet also only few or absence of official data. It is quite normal because member states are in the MSP process elaboration, as explained previously, so that they do not have already identified all the official data for MSP. We meet also an imbalanced level of web services availability, or the availability in different protocols not always interoperable. Data and information are often not available in the neighboring country's language. We meet also a lot of differences in the data portrayal and in the data model. Also, we identified some geometric issues. For example, cable and pipelines can be disconnected at the boundaries because of differences of the accuracy of the information depending on the source. Or another issue with terrestrial and maritime boundaries agreed between neighboring countries, but published with differences in the coordinate accuracy. Finally, the absence of a common MSP data classification and common MSP indicators, except MSFG indicators. Addressing some of these technical challenges will be initiated during SIMWESTMED's project, provided that the data is available and can be shared. The results of the analysis on data needs and gaps for MSP in a transboundary context in the Western Mediterranean waters of Spain, France, Italy, and Malta will soon be available. After that, additional conclusions will be presented in a report by the end of 2018 on the basis of the implementation of the data geoportal demonstrator. I thank you a lot for your attention during this presentation. I hope that you heard what I said. I now leave the floor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you a lot, Dominique. Indeed, very interesting presentation. I'm really sorry for the sound issue. We tried to make it functional as much as we were able to. So I'm happy to see that we have a bit of time. We could have 10 minutes to open the floor for discussion and for people who might have been interested in some points of Dominique that they did not hear. So maybe it's now also the place to raise your hand. That she was wondering about data sources for the COCONET portal and EMODnet, also about data quality assurance. So what mechanisms you use to validate your data? So the question is for COCONET and EMODnet portals. So yes, we can hear from Federica for COCONET.
Hello? Yes? Okay, about the data sources. We received the data directly from the partners, most of the time, and we evaluate the data ourselves. So in the COCONET there was a data management work package dedicated to data management and to the analysis also of the data and the quality. So first of all, we tried to include the data with a certain quality, and anyway, in the attribute table of the data, we had always a field explaining the data sources. So if, for example, the data comes from a survey, or comes from publication, or comes from expert opinion, so that the users know which kind of data is using. I don't know if it's answering the question or not.
Yes. Thank you, Federica. In case, yeah, Haya, are you able to talk now?
Hello, this is Simona. May I answer for the EMODnet? Okay. So,
yes, exactly.
Regarding the,
please.
Regarding EMODnet, this question is a little bit more complicated, because since we are working in thematic portals, so each portal has its own validation or its own data sources. So I can take the example of the chemistry lot, because I know how it works very well. So what they do, actually, behind the EMODnet lot, there is the CDataNet infrastructure. So actually, as Federica was saying, CDataNet developed a vocabulary and standards, which is a reference for the community. So what we do in the chemistry, for example, is to harvest all the data within the infrastructure, and considering some kind of data, and we perform in an iterative way. So every year, every 2 years, we perform a validation of this data. There is, in this way, the possibility to provide data products. So this is an intermediate step to then produce the data products. And the data anomalies that comes from this quality check strategy are sent to the data providers in order to increase the quality of the overall data infrastructure.
Yes. So thank you, Simona. I hope they were able to answer my questions for the answer. Okay, good to know that. So we have a second question from Aurora, who wanted to know how the NGOs will be involved or are involved in your activities. So I guess that this question is for all the presentations. So if anyone is interested to start.
So regarding EMODnet, of course, these are non-governmental organizations are included as data providers if they want to submit the data. So through the data ingestion portal, you can submit your data. But on the other side, in the EMODnet partnership, we have a lot of non-governmental institutions or organizations, so they are fully involved in this process.
Yes, thank you for that. Federica, would you like to comment, or Dominique, on these points, or Emanuele?
Using my microphone. I mean, in our partnership, there were no NGOs involved. It was more a scientific partnership, because the COCONET project was a scientific project. In the Amare project, we are involving the manager of the MPAs, and we are going to use the same structure, of course, which we are going to change it to adapt the structure to the aim of managing the marine protected areas and to assessing the multiple pressure on the relevant habitats on the different MPAs. So now, of course, we're going to include different kind of data in the previous previous COCONET structure, but at that time it was more scientifically focused.
Yes, thank you. Dominique, please go ahead. You raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. In the case of SIMWESTMED project, the governments are involved at the beginning of the project. In SIMWESTMED, they are part of the steering committee because to fulfill the MSP Directive requirements, the countries have to share knowledge and try to cooperate and inform each other of their plans. So, on the principle, they have to share the results of the plan. If they have not, it is not required that they share the evidences of the plans have to be shared. So it's a step for them to be well aware of the fact that data need to be shared. Also, they are in the principle of the data study of SIMWESTMED. The idea is to harvest the data that is already shared, and to point out that some countries open some categories of data, and that it could be useful that the other ones do the same. So it's a step to go further, and I am really confident that this kind of project can help in producing and opening more different categories of data, because the European member states governments are involved in the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dominique. I don't know if Emanuele, would you like to take the floor and mention?
In our project in the Panacea community, I can say that we have also NGO that are involved as data providers, but as well as final user. So our community is integrating NGO.
Okay. Thank you for that. I might just add that in addition, Panacea has a structure of the advisory board that is built on regional organizations and NGOs that are part of the process of somehow validating the developments as well as the data that are being generated. Okay, I see. Okay, so Aurora seems to have got the answer she was expecting. We could give 1 more minute in case there's any burning question. Okay, I see Pilar that has raised her hand. Can you try to talk, Pilar? I don't know if we can hear you. Pilar, do you hear us? I cannot hear you, but maybe, okay, you would be writing. That's great. So we'll wait for the question of Pilar, and after that we would need to close to be on time. So regarding EMODnet.
Dania?
Yes.
In the meantime, I wanted to say that I sent by the chat the link to the movie. So there is a link to YouTube, so everybody can reach and look at that from the link. Okay?
Yes, very well. And we will make sure we will have it also in the summaries or the brief report that we would be developing as an outcome of the webinar. So everybody will have access to it.
Okay.
Meanwhile, so the question of Pilar is for EMODnet on where does the fisheries information come from and what is it about?
Well, this is a good question because we have some fishery data in the biological lot, which actually I don't know very much, I have to admit. I can speak about the Mediterranean Med Sea checkpoint that I was involved, and we had many difficulties in reaching and getting the data from the member states. So we had to wait 2 years to get few data from the member states about the data landing, catch by catch. So you can look at the web portal of the Med Sea checkpoints for the challenge related to to fishery management. If you want to see what we got for this part. And actually it was a recommendation from at the end of the project. It was one of the outcome about the data, fishery data, to create an ad hoc action about the fishery data, kind of a specific lot about the fishery. And also there was some recommendation in order to involve the scientists more into the management of fishery data, because now what we get is that we access to not the raw data. So we don't get the raw data, but data are already analyzed and in a complex way. So we asked to the DG Mare to take an action in order to involve the scientists in the analysis of fishery data.
Okay, thank you for that, Simona. Pilar seems to be okay. And she has a second question. We need to start closing. I see also Mehdi writing, I guess, a question. Let's take these two and try to close soon, so we don't have everybody waiting more than needed. So Aurora, meanwhile, is asking, what about birds? Is there a bird census? I don't know if it's for EMODnet, this question. I expect it to be.
Well, in EMODnet, I listed that into the biological portal. So please take a look at the web portal dedicated to biology, and there you can find all the information and the contact person if you need to make some specific question.
Okay, thank you for that. Mehdi has kindly connected us to the platform of the FAO on the DCRF database to look at the data. I guess that's related to fisheries. And then we have Pilar just raising a question regarding the MSP presentation. So that's for Dominique. What about waters beyond national jurisdiction? Whether your project is taking care of including information about waters that are outside the national jurisdiction. To you, Dominique.
Yes, thank you. Well, the MSP directive doesn't take into account the waters beyond national jurisdictions. And European member states have to produce MSP plans for their marine waters. So until the waters under their jurisdiction, there is nothing in the MSP directive with waters beyond the national jurisdiction. But the MSP directive encourages the EU member states to cooperate to plan the activities in their waters and to preserve the environment in their waters, and in order that there is no impact of what a state is doing on the other side of the borders to the other side. So it's a step, but indeed it is not about planning waters beyond the jurisdiction of the member EU state. Sorry. Yes, just few waters.
Yes, thank you for that, Dominique. Yes, it is among, sadly, the type of gaps that we will be encountering if we work under one policy target or the other. So in that case, the answer is that it does not go beyond the national jurisdiction. Okay, so just a last comment from Mehdi. As UNEP-MAP RAC-SPA by RAC, we are very pleased to try to link the different georeference databases as we are trying to support the Mediterranean countries to update their monitoring programs in light of regional processes such as the ECAP process and the MSFD. Monitoring programs cover habitat species as well as non-indigenous species, of course, and this is a very, the work that RAC-SPA is doing is a very clear also ecosystem-based approach that tries to cover the Mediterranean as a whole. That is very much important in our work as we are somehow dealing with biodiversity that does not really limit itself to administrative boundaries.